Hva er det du tenker du skal ta opp her nå, da?
Leiligheten.
Ja.
Og deg, selvfølgelig. Innimellom. Kunst på veggen, ja. Der, sånn. Table Society, kapittel 2, er det 25.7. i dag, og vi skal av gårde og begynne å se på innholdet i festivalen og etter å ha blitt kjent med byen. Så da har jeg skrevet på engelsk igjen. Today it starts. I am curious about the possibility of elevation that lies within the place. And that one can, as in biblical parlance, rise to the place, where the place constitutes the ascending affordance or the potential to ascend, even where the landscape is flat. In my idea of timescapes, the swirl is the signature of ascension and descent. Liksom den der, sånn. In Beckett, I think it is a connection between the horizontal and vertical 8, as in his dance piece, Quad. For reasons relating to my brief but called an immersive encounter with the Steve Paxton line of query, motional query of the site and of motion itself, self-motion perception developed in the cerebellum, or even what might be called the Paxton material, I have associated the horizontal 8 with a special role on the floor developed in this dance milieu, generated from the outward rotational motion of the arms and hands emerging dorsally from the scapula, and the inwards rotational motion of the legs and feet emerging from the pelvis. With this self-producing rolling motion on the floor, the vertical 8 I would associate with Tai Chi, with the pelvis and scapula become connected in the performance of the form, with the dorsal column as the secret pathway between legs and arms, as well as between the Tantien and the cerebellar fulcrum. If the elevation of the site can be conjured to reveal the place, that is, if the elevation of the site can be conjured to reveal the place, then we are in the orbit of the archaeological idea that I seek to develop in relation to the learning theatre. Somehow I sense that this idea of mine, and is it then really mine, is at the crossroads between Kant and Schopenhauer. Kant because there is a cartographic aspect of the learning theatre. Kant was a cartographer as a mode of approach. Schopenhauer because the will of the place as a Kabbalistic notion partakes of the notion of the world as will and of this will as the thing in itself. Schopenhauer's rejoinder or retort to Kant's idea of Ding an sich. In this regard, I find that Wenche Mühlheisen's notion of das Ding in mir, the thing in me, certainly is lewd, but it's also something else, which perhaps is the hallmark of true or emancipated sexuality. What I think of as the compound of care and violence, of the meme, the memory of contact, and the sense of a still ongoing contact, characteristic of human relationships, at least the profounder ones, tend to feed and intensify each other in creative and sort of factual ways, which is characteristic of the realm of the affect.
So as I sit here several months later and reflect upon my notes from Enniskillen, I start to think about being in the moment there and knowing that this is something that I probably wouldn't manage to recreate or maybe stage when I live there, because there's something very site specific about that experience that I cannot really try to replicate afterwards. And then I was thinking, what format should I use? How can I capture these moments into words or images? And the images do help. I mean, making a film is really helpful. But nonetheless, there is still that distance. At least I feel there is a distance. Because it felt like a very physical journey. Not because we just walked a lot, but visiting the spaces where the plays were held, like the Portora Grammar School, where Beckett went to school when he was a teenager, or quite, yeah, around 12, 13 years old, and just going into the drama rooms, the theater space where they played quad, and it was like being, in a school situation, but with Beckett play a professional piece by Mark Morris, American choreographer, and just being in that situation where there was something like really accessible by the fact that we were in this space, but also, that Beckett's place can feel sometimes inaccessible. At least to me, that I haven't really seen that many Beckett plays live, so this was actually the first real experience where I got to see many of the plays actually for the first time. I've seen many on YouTube, but to be honest, let's face it, this is not exactly the same. So I had this image of what these plays were like live, but seeing them made me realize that they were nothing like the way I kind of imagined them, or maybe that's too harsh, but at least not so close to what I had imagined in advance. So going there was a very physical experience, because you had the place that you had, been reading many, many times in front of you. And this is an important aspect of actually seeing a play and not just reading a play. And also, after that moment of seeing the play live, you feel like, okay, this is the time to embody this in another way. And then taking this with you back home to Norway, like I did. And after that, experimenting a lot with finding my own Beckett character. And because of the experiences from Enniskillen, I was somehow able to really channel a Beckett character. And my character was inspired by many different plays, but mostly from Come and Go, which I actually saw in Enniskillen. And, seeing them sitting there in front of me, I just had this kind of like magnetic field that drew me to them. And it was like, even though I had never done this play myself, I suddenly understood how I was supposed to grasp their being, or in a way understand them, as this kind of like vacuum in time in a way. And it was really strange how this occurred to me very strongly in that situation, but it was a very strong message there. And I remember taking that with me, and as the scenario in Come and Go is that three people are sitting on a bench, maybe in a park, um, waiting for something, maybe someone, I don't know, or each other. And one keeps leaving, and one and keeps coming back, at a turn, one and one. And then from time to time they sit together in a group of three. And then I thought, okay, who am I without my two companions? The two people sitting on each side of me. And then I imagined, waiting for them, meaning that, they will probably never show up. And I had this pocket watch, or what should we even call it? Yeah, the pocket watch is probably right, that I bought from Trinity College, actually with the idea of using it for a Beckett performance, which I'm now doing, and imagining that I was a fourth character in Come and Go, and that these three women, Flo, Vi, and Rue, actually never showed up to the bench. And then I had this invisible imprint of them around me, trying to kind of relive the moment I spent with them, but just remaining trapped there in a way. And then the aspect of waiting, which of course is a very well-known theme in Beckett. Waiting for what? It's a big existential problem, and I guess all his characters in a way are waiting for something, or it can really be something that is about to happen or something that could happen. I mean, there's a lot of unknown factors, and I like to work with the unknown when I do theater or performance, because a play is not exciting, and at least in my opinion, if you know the whole story before you have even come to the end and you have guessed everything in advance. I guess there's a way of sparking the imagination of the audience. So I think to me that's a very important thing when working with Beckett, is that something may or may not happen, and maybe something unimportant happen many times, but it's a repetitive pattern that makes it important. And this is also a very key element in my performance, because I take these kind of mundane actions that you would relate to everyday life, and I just repeat them on and on and on until they actually become very performative. But let's take one example. I'm actually just eating a carrot, and I'm savoring this carrot, and there's nothing really much to it but the action of eating a carrot. But I saw a recording of that performance afterwards, and then I saw how the effect or the image of eating a carrot looked from the outside, and it actually was just a very interesting action in itself. Beat 2. Eating a madeleine, thinking of Proust, then thinking of Beckett, thinking of Proust, writing accordingly.